there treacle tarts, I'm going to do a video where I talk about a few various different things that came up in the comments underneath my last video where I talked about goddess worship. There were a number of different interesting things, questions that were asked, etc. And there's questions that I've been asked that I haven't addressed and stuff. So this is going to be basically kind of a collection of different musings and answers to questions, etc. So I hope this is helpful. So basically, I want to begin by saying that I'm no expert in goddess worship or anything like that. It's something that I have been doing that's really helped me, that I've gotten a lot out of, that I'm so happy that I became involved with. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I never thought I was going to become involved in anything like this. This was definitely not something I saw myself kind of getting into. It wasn't a paradigm that I thought I was ever going to choose for myself. So I clearly needed it, and I think I knew I needed it, and I kept sort of looking at other people who were working with goddesses and in a very goddess-centric paradigm, and feeling envious and feeling all kinds of weird things where I was trying to convince myself that it wasn't what I wanted and whatnot. And basically in the end I just sort of gave in, and I think sometimes you've just got to give in to what is really calling to you, and the more that you try to intellectualize your way out of it, somehow the more you know that you're just bullshitting yourself and you're being super fake, and it's no good, is it? So you just have to, in the end, acknowledge that it's something that's calling to you and let that be the case, basically. I want to address my own irritation and frustration that I have with certain people trying to say that you should have a god and a goddess in your practice. If you're going to work with a personified female deity, you need to also have some aspect of male deity or the divine masculine, or however you want to see it, basically. The reason that this point of view really just ticks me off and makes me recoil is that, you know, a lot of neo-paganism and new age paths and sovereign spirituality and witchcraft, etc., is a response to a lot of the religion that's been stuffed down our throats, you know, that is very male-centric and is very much to do with a male god and is very much to do with a male earthly saviour who comes along and whatnot, you know. So it's a reaction to that, and it's a beautiful, sacred reaction to that. It's important. Another issue is that I particularly find it kind of gross when men tell women what to do in their practice. I think it's gross when anyone does it to anyone. But I think when men come along and say you need a representation of something or someone that looks like me and represents what I identify with and represents what I am, you've got to really look at that and be like, stop, please. I realise it's threatening to not be able to see yourself represented, but this is my altar, it's my practice, and I don't want to see you represented. You know, I see you represented everywhere all the fucking time. So this is my personal haven where I don't have to have anything represented that I don't feel comfortable with, you know? And that's really important when we are sovereign spiritualists, when we are spiritual anarchists, when we're breaking down the barriers and looking at things from our own point of view. We need to look at what is not important and what we don't need and allow ourselves to reject it. Obviously, a lot of women have recognised that they do not require male godhead. They do not want male godhead. It doesn't make sense to have male godhead, and actually a lot of women are healing from being part of a religion where male godhead was the whole animal and there was really no symbol of divine womanhood. So that's a response, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to some form of brainwashing or oppression. It's not brainwashing or oppression in itself, as some people like to think and as some people like to view it. There was a comment underneath my last goddess-centric kind of video, and it was somebody saying, you know, I'm just coming to witchcraft and neo-paganism, and it does seem to be very centered on women and, you know, the female experience or the female form, or, you know, all this kind of thing. Is that normal? Is that what I'm walking into? Is that what this is? And my answer to that would be, to an extent, yeah. I mean, witchcraft is so vast and so broad. The term neo-pagan is so vast and so broad. but you're going to be in for a much bigger dose of that kind of stuff than perhaps you've been exposed to anywhere else on your life journey so far. And if you feel intimidated by that, or you feel like that is wrong for you as someone who isn't a woman and doesn't identify as a woman, then you really have to kind of take that, I think, to the place of shadow work in a way. You have to ask yourself why that might be, because if you imagine all the times that a woman has ever come to a particular field that they want to enter into, or a particular activity that they want to do, or a particular form of expertise that they want to master, and they see that that field, that area of things is completely ruled by men. Men are the dominant forces, men are the dominant voices, men are winning the awards for it, men are writing the books on it, and there are no women there. There's like no one to whom that woman can turn to and say, yeah, okay, so this is a field for me also. And that woman has had to go into that field anyway and break into it anyway and make herself known anyway and do her work anyway. And sometimes that is a little bit what men have to do when they move into some of these kinds of spiritual circles. And it's the same with things like tarot. Tarot is a industry dominated by women. There are men in the tarot game for sure, but it is undoubtedly dominated by women. It is undoubtedly full of women, and all the major players pretty much are mostly women, not entirely, but mostly. And that there's nothing hostile about that. It's brilliant. It's a good thing. It's awesome, and no one should feel intimidated by that or desirous to change it. People can come into it who aren't women, of course, but I think when you come into it with an attitude of concern or fear or intimidation, or feeling like, oh, I'm not really a part of this doesn't involve me, then I think you seek to change it. And if you seek to change anything that is to do with women kind of rising up and sharing stories and elevating each other and whatnot, then you really have to ask yourself, is that what you want to do? Is that the direction you want to go in? Someone asked me if I pray the rosary Catholic style. I absolutely do not. I did learn how to do that a long time ago. I do know how to do that, but I don't do that. I have my own words. I have my own stuff that I use. And I do take things from various different prayers that I learned from my nana and stuff like that, but I change them. I totally customize them. I make them my own. So when I pray the rosary, it's my own stuff completely. It doesn't feel comfortable for me to do it Catholic style. And the other thing that was asked underneath my last video was, do I ever feel disrespectful working with Mary? Now the answer to that is definitely no. But maybe there is an element of defiance in that where I'm concerned, because I just feel like if you were exposed to something from such a young age and it was a part of you from the day dot, and it was really important to some of the family members that were most important to you, and you've had dynamic lived experiences with that being or with that concept or with that practice, I feel like the fact that you were never actually formally indoctrinated into it, and the fact that you're not a part of it now, shouldn't really matter. It's clear that that had a massive bearing on your reality. It's clear that that was a huge part of your life. So for me, I feel, I guess, not a possessiveness so much, but almost like, well, yeah, I mean, I saw Mary statuettes from the time I was a baby. She's mine. It makes sense. It's a living relationship. I was introduced to her. It wasn't even me. I didn't even, you know what I mean? Like with my other divine feminine guiding force, Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld, I chose her. I went to her. I wanted to have a connection with her. But with Mary, it wasn't even that way. Like, it wasn't even me. Do you know what I mean? Okay, guys, I'm lying down now because my back is just giving me shit. For anyone who doesn't know, I have a back injury, which I sustained a long time ago. And every so often, it just fucking won't shut up. Yeah, so I need to stop sitting on my L4 basically. So yeah, with regard to feeling disrespectful for working with Mary, it's complicated. Like, it's complicated as well because I see Catholicism as a major mainstream religion. I don't see it as a marginalized religion. I see it as a very wealthy, very dominant religion. But at the same time, I come from a familial situation and a political culture, if you will, where I was raised to see being Catholic as being something that it was dangerous to be for a long time, and that like Catholics are persecuted and all that kind of jazz. Like I was brought up, you know, being taught that Catholics couldn't adopt children until some ridiculous time in history, and just all that kind of thing, like the troubles in Ireland and all that stuff. I learned all about that, and I still have a vested interest in that. So it's kind of weird because in a way I do see it as this very dominant religion, and therefore I feel like worries about disrespecting that religion are a lot less important to me. But at the same time, I don't see it as a it's hard, it's complicated basically. But no, I don't feel disrespectful working with Mary, and I think the love that I have for her and the strength of the bond that I have with her probably sort of makes me not worried about that. You know, I know there's always going to be some people who will come across my Instagram who are Catholic or whatever, and they'll feel like this is their thing, and they're going to be angry with me for not being Catholic and not accepting pretty much any of the rest of the doctrine, but still having Mary all over my altar and, you know, celebrating the Feast of the Assumption and stuff like that. I know that's going to get up some people's noses, but to an extent, you have to decide what really is truly in your heart, and you're pretty much always going to piss off someone if your spirituality is very sovereign and very freewheeling and you're doing what you're doing, and you know, it's a bigger conversation. But no, I don't feel disrespectful. I think Mary is used actually for quite a lot of crappy shit in the Catholic Church. I feel like taking her back as my own and working with her in this very specific way where I've taken her away from the rest of the doctrine and, in my mind, far away from the politics and the ideology that like that doctrine has created, is a very sacred thing. I feel like Mary is used to prop up all kinds of disgusting shit that demeans women and restricts access to reproductive rights and all the rest of it. So I suppose there is that rebellious element to it as well for me. I look so weird when I lie down. My face is all like trying to fall this way. Somebody also asked me underneath the last goddess video that I did if Hel and Mary actually talk to each other and work together when they work with me. So basically, are they a team? Are they both working together for my benefit? And I would say that I never feel like they're working together, but I feel like sometimes the messages that they give me match up quite a lot. It's quite interesting. Like, I ask them for guidance on specific things, and sometimes the messages that they give me are very themed in the same direction, and they intertwine absolutely perfectly. But I never see that as them working together. I never imagine that their energies or their beings are working together in any conscious way. I never see it that way. I never choose to imagine it that way. But it is magic how the two distinct energies like match up and entangle into, let's say, synchronized advice. There's a synergy to what they're saying, and that I have definitely noticed and I definitely appreciate. There's a particular purchase option that I offer over at my online store, and it's called Tea with the Goddess, and basically it's an extension of something that I do for myself with my personal spiritual work, but I've started to offer it for my clients. And as part of the work that I do with that particular purchase option, I do commune with my two divine feminine guiding forces, so Hel and Mother Mary. And I notice, particularly with the stuff that comes through there in my communion with them before opening sacred space for my client, that the messages are sometimes very connected. They're not the same message, but they are sometimes an underlining of each other, or there's a focus on a specific theme, but it's highlighting different parts of that specific theme. It's very interesting. Somebody asked me about navigating light and shadow when it comes to the Catholic Church, and to be honest with you, I'm not part of the Catholic Church. I'm not Catholic, so the darkness and everything, it doesn't really occur to me that much in relation to my work with Mary. It does occur to me, like, as an individual, I am interested in that. In fact, I'd recommend a specific book about the history of the confession booth called The Dark Box. I can't remember who wrote it now, but I'll leave it down below. I'll leave a link down below. That book really was just harrowing and confirmed a lot of things I already knew, but also went into a lot of things I didn't know about the way priests are educated in the seminary. And it's just an amazing book about how the development of the confession booth and the concept being instated into Catholicism widely made it way more possible for abuse to take place. It's a very heavy read, but it's really, I mean, it's accessible, it's an easy read, but the material is heavy, right? But that kind of book, I read that kind of book, and obviously I've had a very vested interest in the repeal of the Eighth Amendment, and I posted some stuff about that on social media. I didn't keep that a secret. That was very important to me, that they repealed the Eighth Amendment. I do have an interest in that dark side of Catholicism. It's actually really affected my family in a very personal way, and it's been really, really hard. Like, I think it's part of what's torn my family apart in a sense, but when in relation to my work with Mary, it doesn't come into it at all, really. Someone asked me what the dark goddess actually says to me. So what does hell actually communicate? What does she actually teach? And some of the main things I would say that she has taught me as themes, if you will, are self-discipline and self-mastery, and the ability to actually deal with certain realities that I hadn't wanted to confront. And she's still teaching me those things. There are some things I've been stubborn on in that regard. But she is very disciplined. You know, if you look at her story, if you look at her place in the pantheon, she never married, she never had any children. She runs her kingdom single-handedly, and it's a tough job in a difficult terrain. And she brings her all to it, and she's dedicated to it. And that has given me a lot. You know, working with a goddess like that has given me a lot and made me more serious and made me prioritise more. And she definitely toughens me up. But she doesn't talk to me or communicate with me the way that a lot of people say she communicates with them. You know, like, hell is kind of a little bit similar to the Morrigan with regard to how people talk about her. A lot of people say that she's like a real sort of bitch-slapping, hard ass, very, very tough, not at all motherly, not at all kindly kind of goddess. And I don't get that from her at all, really. She has toughened me up, and she does make me see things in a more realistic way. But a lot of the stuff that people say in terms of her general style of communication, I don't really get that so much. It's different for me. The way that the personalities of my two divine feminine guiding forces, if you will, work together is very useful for me. And that's exactly why it looks how it does. I designed it this way consciously. I mean, there were signs and there were things coming through that showed me that it needed to be this way. But it was me ultimately that decided, like, yeah, I do want to bring the Blessed Mother in more. And there's still a connection there from when I was younger. And it makes sense that I would work with these two together. To be very, very general, I would say that hell is more about teaching me to take care of business and to do what I've got to do, and to try as hard as I can to walk the path that is right rather than the path that is easy, and to improve myself all the time, you know, to be improving myself. She encourages me to push myself beyond whatever plateau I might be on, and like upwards, and challenge myself and see myself evolving. There is a lot of toughness to that kind of work. And she also encourages me to confront what I might be trying to run away from. The Blessed Mother is much more about helping me to be in the seat of my compassion and my love and my generosity when I'm doing my work, and also to be in the seat of my compassion, love and generosity when I'm dealing with myself and also with other people. So that's more her role, but that's super, super general and not necessarily related to anything specific. Someone asked me what the Prayer of Our Lady was, and I really shouldn't call it the Prayer of Our Lady. It's called a Hail Mary, is what I was talking about, I believe. I don't know why I always refer to it as the Prayer of Our Lady, because there's so many prayers for her, and you've got like the Prayer of Our Lady of Lourdes and the Prayer of God. I mean, God, you've got prayers upon prayers, so I should just refer to it as the Hail Mary. And it goes, Hail Mary, Mother of God, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our deaths. Amen. It's very pretty and very powerful, and I heard it at a very young age, and it's what you pray during penance and stuff like that. Someone asked me if I feel defensive or possessive when other people work with hell. And the answer is yes, to an extent, but I'm completely aware that that's my own problem. I'm also excited to meet other people that work with hell or have had experiences with her. But yeah, there's definitely a possessive feeling as well. And I think that, I'm not sure if this happens with people who work with way more sort of popular, well-known goddesses, because I've always thought that my possessiveness was somewhat to do with the fact that she's not a goddess that a lot of people know of or work with, basically. But I don't know. It could be the case that other people that have way more widely known goddesses do also feel defensive and protective as well. I hope not, because that would be bloody tiring with every other person like coming along saying, yeah, I work with Freya or I work with Isis, and you being like, oh, she's mine. That would be tiring. But yeah, I do feel defensive and possessive. I think it's calmed down a lot now. It's more, if I was ever to come across anyone who was just trying to be really hardline and say that their experiences were the quintessential experiences with hell, or I don't like it when people make videos where they're like, this goddess is like this and like this and like this and like this, and it's like, to you she is, for you she is, but you're experiencing her through your own lens. Like, she's not like that for me, and she might not be like that for someone else. So I think that's where I get defensive, not necessarily possessive, but a little bit kind of like, well, your truth isn't the truth, and we can't talk about a goddess for God's sake, as though she's just one way and she's only one thing. It's bad enough when people do that about a human being, but a goddess, come on now. Someone asked me how they would work with hell if they felt like she was calling to them. Honestly, it's something that you've really got to answer for yourself. For me, I think if some entity or energy or deity was calling to me and I wanted to make contact, I would go into sacred space and I would make a phone call. In other words, I would speak openly and honestly to that being and say, if you're close by and you've got something for me, if you want to tell me something, I'm open, I'm willing, I'm ready, you know, show me what you got, basically, in the most loving and appreciative way possible. Maybe make an offering or something like that. Just show your readiness to listen and to learn. Someone asked me if I practice discipline or self-sacrifice in any form, presumably relating to the fact that I work with the Blessed Virgin, and there's a big tradition of sacrifice and whatnot, and deprivation and flagellation as well, in the Catholic tradition. I do work with discipline and self-sacrifice. I have fasted a few times, and I do put myself through my paces in various ways relating to discipline and sacrifice and that kind of stuff. I won't elaborate more than that for now, but yeah, it is a part of my practice, and I do think that there is great spiritual merit to some form of controlled, conscious, reasoned deprivation, for sure, for me anyway. So yeah, that's been really interesting. Fasting has been really interesting, and of course I do that not just in the sense of discipline or sacrifice, but also because I do think it's cleansing psycho-spiritually. I'm not talking about anything nutritional or dietary here, guys, but psycho-spiritually I do think that there's great merit to it. So those are my answers to a number of different questions and a number of things that came up. I hope that these answers have been useful. So much love, and I'd love to know all about your ideas in the comments. Blessed be, guys. Mwah.